What do you do when you come face to face with absolute authority? When you come face to face with power? Especially power that doesn't recognize your God. Power that doesn't recognize your faith. Situations that doesn't recognize the authority of your scriptures. Those are the type of situations we find ourselves in almost on a daily basis. You know God. It is an assurance you have. There's a conviction you have in a secret place about the relationship you have with your God, but your landlord doesn't recognize that conviction. The bills you need to pay and the people you need to pay those bills to, they don't know that relationship you have with God. Now that's when faith is tried, when a man's faith is challenged by external entities that do not bow to the ideas that are propagated by that supposed faith. So when the three Hebrew boys met this type of enemy, they said to this enemy, they said, we have a conviction that is based off a knowledge. It's based off a knowledge we have among our people. We share that common knowledge of the deliverances that our God has wrought among our people. So if it is deliverance, we know that our God specializes in delivering his people from their enemies. And that knowledge is passed across and along from father to child, generations to generation. It has been recited to us, we know. Now listen. The first problem we encounter as Gentiles when we look at the testimony of the three Hebrew boys is that you are telling me that you know your God is able to deliver you, while you are a slave in my country. So how come you are confessing victory in defeat? You are still holding to a God that you claim delivers, yet he could not stop me from invading your land, capturing you people, killing some of you, and bringing you to my country to serve as slaves. Are you seeing how a man's conviction can transcend his current situation? They held on to the honor of their God, even though physically that honor had been let down. A God who delivers, yet he could not deliver them from the hand of their enemies when their enemies invaded their land and captured them. So these guys were confessing victory in seeming defeat. And that's the first point that the Gentiles will look at and mock this God that these guys are speaking of. And they confess. They say, we know our God is able to deliver us. Meanwhile, if you look closely there, they also say something that's very important. Our God whom we what? Serve. These were active servants of that God that could not deliver their nation from the hands of the enemy. Yet guess what? Service never diminished. So they did not just proclaim victory in defeat. They continued to serve a God that from a Gentile's perspective was unable to deliver them from being captured. It's a scary thing we're looking at here. There was no Jewish rabbi to help their faith at this moment. They had come face to face with absolute power. Power that did not at this point recognize their God. Because if your God is so powerful, how come I was able to come into your country, take your people? You know, they ask you, if your God is so powerful, why did they allow your sister die? And then you sense the dart of the enemy as he shoots directly into your faith. Now listen. After they proclaimed that faith, next verse. After they proclaimed that faith, you would expect that God will look at this and immediately there will be a chain reaction in the spirit that will signify to these guys that, listen, what you people have done has pleased the Lord. Now there's about to be deliverance. Are we together? They say, we know he's able to deliver us. But even though he would not, let it be known to you, King, that we would not bow to worship your God and serve him. Now move. Guess what happened? The Bible said, then Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, and the expression of his face changed what? Towards Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He spoke and commanded that what? They heat the furnace 7 times more than it was usually heated. Do you see that? Faith confession increased the situation. Have you ever confessed faith and then the situation worsened? It's a painful thing. At least you were managing the problem, Braola. Then you now finish night vigil and you now say, Hiko. What comes to me now? That's the day all your investment crash. Maybe they would have survived with 3rd-degree burns the way the fire was. But after confessing their faith in their God, the problem that was supposed to get better worsened. It worsened. Yes, this is practical. I know you've been there. I've been there. You say with every ounce of your spirit, you proclaim. Not minding that you are saying these victorious confessions in seeming defeat. Holding on to the honor of your God when in the reality it seems as though your God has abandoned you. And so they say, King, there may be a possibility that today we may not get deliverance, but we better die knowing that our God is a deliverer than to die as heartbroken men, feeling that our God has abandoned us. I better die with the feeling that my God is a deliverer than the feeling that my God is one who has abandoned his people. And after this very passionate and powerful declaration of faith, even to the highest authority in that nation, their problem did not get any better. In fact, it wasn't, to the tune of 7. And then guess what? The fire showed them in the physical an example of what they would suffer. The fate that awaited them because they chose to what? Stay in faith. So what happens? The people that was to go hit the fire died. So the situation will say, look at this person, look at this person, look at this person. These are examples of people that are going to where you are going to. Look at the fate they met. Yes. Oh, that's how another pastor came and was saying the same thing. He's dead today. And then another that is father to faith. Faith attacked by reality. Faith attacked by reality. Faith is meant to uplift your spirit, to carry you through the pains and the burdens of life, to bring deliverance where there is need, so that your joy can be restored again. But one of the major enemy of faith is reality. Because a lot of times we confess faith in the face of situations that are totally opposite to what we are confessing. And then they confessed, and then their problem worsened. And then also there was a practical demonstration in their very eyes that showed them the fate that awaited them simply because of the stance that they took. At this point, it was a point of no return because the king was already wrought. Guess what? Faith offends the enemy. The enemy can attack you because he's an enemy. But when you continue in faith, the enemy now becomes intentional about the attack because faith what? Offends the enemy. Faith offends the enemy. This is why faith is a shield, because when that shield is seen, there are fiery darts that will try to break the durability. It will test the durability of that shield and it will try to break that shield. Guess what happened? You see, the king wanted to use them as an example. Their case was supposed to be a deterrent to other people who may be harboring such notions in their heart, to believe that there is a God that could deliver them from the hands of Nebuchadnezzar. So when you see Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego with all the gracious things they've said about this God that could not deliver them when their nation was being encroached, and then a public display was made with them, that your faith you harbor, it will die from your spirit. And indeed, many people not understanding that sometimes even the righteous can die because of his faith. When they see the righteous martyred, their faith dies. Not knowing that when you connect to this kingdom of God, you walk on earth as a dead man, as a martyr. And you see, to die for this faith, to become a pillar on which other people's faith will blossom, is one of the highest privileges that God gives a man. When you are co-seen. I've been there. I've trained my mind to walk with my God. And it's those tips the Lord sent me to show you tonight. To train your mind to walk with your God. To make your mind truly spiritual. What helped these brethren here was a mind they had. Now, the average man will say these guys are living in denial. They don't want to admit or accept reality. Accept that you guys are defeated. Please, let's stop this thing. Let's stop this thing. Accept that you guys are defeated. If your God was so powerful, why is it that he allowed Israel to be captured in the first place? That one is enough sign that this thing you are doing is nonsense. Faith continues hoping on God and working with God, even though the grand plan is not immediately revealed. Even though you don't have the full scope or the full understanding of the grand plan, because a lot of times the grand plan of God will be hidden from us. Faith continues believing. So it looks like a loss, but service never diminished and faith continued. And then we know the story. They were delivered by their God. And then guess what? Even in the land of their enemy, the honor of their God was upheld. But you notice something. Even in the land of the enemy, the righteous did live by their faith. Faith doesn't work because you confess it. Faith works because the one who you serve acknowledges your confession. They served him. Said the God who we serve. Serving a God that could not protect you from being raped. The God who we serve. That God did not protect you from your landlord kicking you out of the house. The God who we serve. Yet that God did not protect you from losing your job. The God who we serve. Even in the worst situation, the God who we serve. You can take everything from me. You cannot break my mind. You cannot break it. You've truly taken everything from me when you touch my mind. The God who we serve. I may be bound in the flesh, but I choose to be free in the spirit. The God who we serve. So guess what? Just like every other man, the best and the worst thing they can do to you is to try to kill your flesh. Yes. So the God who we serve, he will deliver us. But even though he doesn't, I want you to have an idea of the type of mind we have. We Hebrew people, we don't know about you guys in Babylon, but there's something that works in our mind. We the Hebrews. And a king as feared as Nebuchadnezzar could not understand why 3 Hebrew peasants will not bow. Okatemona. Let's open to the book of Romans. Chapter 5, Romans 8:5. How to train our minds to become spiritual. With this, you will know how to judge the state or quality of your mind. For those who live according to the flesh, do mind the things of the flesh. And those who live according to the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. Those who live according, it's a generic pattern of existence. He says if you exist that way, to live according to the flesh, your mind, the kind of mind you are imparted with, is the mind that is fixed on the things that pertains to the flesh. The average human being is a being of judgment. You see, when you put your body under the water, you're able to feel the temperature of the water. You're able to also feel the pressure of the water. And with your eyes, you're able to get informations about how it looks like. And then with your ears, you're able to hear the vibrations of sound coming from the water hitting a surface. Now you're able to extract all those informations in the flesh because your flesh and my flesh has been fine-tuned to be able to judge accurately this world and present it to us. And from the informations our flesh gathers and present to our mind, we're able to judge this world. You understand? Our flesh has been fine-tuned in such a way that it's able to gather in its own way accurate information about this world and present it to our minds. And then our minds have the responsibility to now judge whatever information we are receiving through the body. Now, every information and judgment that the flesh gives out, it's good in the sight of the flesh. Because those information comes from, those judgments come from the wealth of information the flesh has been able to gather. And because it has gathered those information, it now gives out its own judgment according to the informations it has gathered. So you think water is colorless because that is the information that your flesh has gathered about that substance called water. You feel it is hot or cold because that is the information what your flesh has received, and it has given you that information. Then with the information it has given you, you can judge whether to put your flesh in that hot water or that cold water. But you see, from scripture perspective, as fine-tuned as our flesh is to this natural world, the information it gives us is not true. It's not totally correct. It's not the truth about the information that is present. There is a limited type of interaction we can have with the flesh. A very limited type of interaction we can have with the flesh. But you see, the informations that aids this interaction, if it is gathered in the flesh, it will be designed in the flesh. And if it is designed in the flesh, although it may seem good to the flesh, it is not the truth of the whole matter. And that's why the Bible says the end thereof is destruction. You see a man, you lust after him, you want to sleep with him. You see a woman, you lust after her, you want to sleep with her. And for that moment, there is an energy that will be quickened to get your body to enter into an autonomous mood that will help it function in that capacity that your mind intends to operate in. And then you people make love and do all that. And in your whole mind, that whole body exists because of that one purpose. And you love that body so much because of that one purpose. But see, if the same body is put before you and is dissected and all the organs are brought out, your mind reads a different, your mind have received a different information about that same body that 3 hours ago you were cherishing and holding, and all of a sudden you run away from that body. That's how fragile the information the mind gathers. You see, so how do you trick the flesh, or how does the flesh trick itself? Yes, because it's possible for the flesh to deceive itself. The flesh tricks itself by covering reality. That is what enticement is. Enticement covers reality, presenting you with something that can lure you into commitment. So our skin covers the reality of our body so that you operate with the body from what is seen, not what is true. You understand? And so the sensory organs that gathers information for us will gather those informations from what it has been enticed to discern. And then our minds, our own spiritual minds, will judge according to the foolishness of the flesh that has given it its information, and then it will commit. Right. So it said those who live according to the flesh, they exist in that form of operation. They operate according to the flesh. The Bible said they do mind the things of the flesh. They are awakened to the things of the flesh. Their processing is according to the things of the flesh. They gather the informations about this realm, about God, from the flesh. They are awakened to the things of the flesh. If you are in the flesh, your thought process will be according to the thought process of the animal life. What is the thought process of the animal life? The thought process of the animal life is self-preservation. The thought process of the world is loss of the eyes, loss of the flesh, pride of life. Now, when the Bible says all that's in the world is the loss of the flesh, the loss of the eyes, and the pride of life, it's not talking about what is in you. It is talking about what is in the world that wants to lure you into commitment. And when you commit yourself to those things, you are now entangled with it. So it says inside the world is what? The lust of the flesh. Things that your flesh desire, by which you are entangled into the world. To make a man more natural, get him to fellowship with things in the natural. So he said there's the lust of the flesh in the world. This world wants to pamper your body. The perfumes, the spa treatments, the 5-star restaurants, everything there is to pamper the flesh. And I said the loss of the eyes, the Range Rovers, the skyscrapers, that's all that's in the world. Things to feed your eyes that will stir up lust in you to desire those things. So your mind is rendered unspiritual simply because of the things you are desiring in the world. And say the pride of life, possessions that are in this world that your mind will deceive you to think you have, but you truly don't have. So to tell you, work harder and possess this. Work harder and possess this. For in the multitude of your possession is your value. So the pride of life. And guess what all this thing does to a man? It gets you to ignore your inner realities. So a man's life, instead of existing within his eternal reality, a man's life begins to exist in the abundance of the possessions he has in this world. So the Bible says, what shall it profit a man to gain? You see, the way you lose your soul is to take your inner life and make it an outward life. Do you understand? So that inner value, reality that you have within you, you now take it out and put it in a house, in a car. You begin to live for these things, thinking those things are somehow giving you some value. Yes, it's giving you some value among them that seek after those things. Why is it that if you have a very fancy car, you are heavily respected? It is because the larger part of the society want to chase after these things. So you can't say you live an eternal life and gain value from these things. You are a fraud. You can't say you are a Christian and yet all you seek after, all you try to use God to do is to seek after these things. Guess what? Some people have managed to use the kingdom knowledge to seek after vanity. If you scrutinize the type of gospel we have in our generation, sir, it's a gospel that tries to use the kingdom knowledge to seek after vanity. So they'll tell you, seek first the kingdom of God means come to church and be committed, and then all other things will be added unto you. And their own spiritual mind thinks that the all other things Jesus is talking about is vanity. You see, I will tell you what a spiritual mind is. And then we are going to be able to judge our mind based on that revelation that is going to come to us. What a spiritual mind is. I'm going to show you. All together. So, say to be carnally minded. To exist in a carnal manifestation. Those who are in the flesh, he said, they do mind the things of the flesh. But those who are what? In the spirit, they live according. Who those who live according to the spirit, they what? They mind the things. Their mind is awakened to the things that are beyond the seen. Let me tell you something about the spiritual world. The spiritual world is a higher realm that exists beyond the material realm. So, how do you know one who is mindful spiritually? If you give him a gift, he's not seeing the gift, he's seeing beyond the gift. That's what he thinks of. What is the intention beyond the gift? What is the life beyond the sacrifice? What is the reality beyond the scene? I sat down and I was meditating on the eclipse that recently happened on the 8th of April. And something came to my mind. And I'm going to put it to you this way so that you can go and meditate on it. What if the eclipses that have been happening on Earth are we together? What if the whole galaxy called Earth is a giant clock, and every eclipse is the hand of the clock hitting 12? Let me not bore you with every eclipse that happens anywhere in the world. Have you ever used an automatic turbulent watch? You'll see those things spinning on their own. Okay, let me not digress. Let me not bore you with my meditations. You will see, you see, a spiritual mind sees beyond what is presented. And oh, there's a beautiful eclipse happen, and every 100 years an eclipse happen, or every 10 years an eclipse happen. What if every time we see the moon pass through the sun, and that phenomenon is observed anywhere in the world, we're actually seeing that the hands has just crossed 12 o'clock, and then another cycle has begun. And then this whole galaxy, the movement of this galaxy, is actually a giant clock. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So let's continue with our. But I'm just trying to give you an example of how the spiritual mind thinks. It thinks beyond the natural thing that is presented. So Apostle Paul says something very simple. He said, those who are in the flesh, or who live according to the flesh, they do mind. They are mindful of the things of the flesh. And those who live according to the spirit are mindful of the things of the spirit. He now says something. He says, for to be carnally minded is death. That statement is weighty. To be carnally minded. I can imagine his cry, because the book of Romans was dictated. You know, Paul was speaking and Tertius was writing. I can imagine him looking at Paul. Because you see, this mind thing, Paul was the one who really spoke of it. This mind, soul, mind type of stuff. The ancient disciples, they spoke of faith, they spoke of all the, but the mind, so to be carnally minded is death. That means for the impartation of the mind that you have to be that which is carnal is dead. Are we together? To be what? Carnally minded is dead. The first question is, how can a man live in death? He's saying if you have a carnal mind, you're already dead. So how can life exist in death? What type of death is he speaking of? Death to what? I will tell you one of the deaths of the carnal mind. One of the deaths of the carnal mind is that when a man exists in a state of carnality, he's dead to spiritual things. So don't argue spiritual things with a man whose mind is dead to it. Have you ever tried to argue with someone on Facebook who is calling church a scam? If you are spiritually minded and you are wasting your time to argue with him, then you don't yet know what it means to be dead to him. Have you ever tried shaking a dead person? He doesn't respond to your stimulus. So guess what? A carnal man, no matter how touching his spiritual word is, he cannot respond to it because he's dead. So when a man is dead in carnality, you don't try to motivate him to live a spiritual life. He's dead to that stimuli. What he needs is life. Do you know how to speak words of life that raises the dead? We preach many things, but see, to raise the dead, for the dead to hear the voice of the Son of Man and then they awake. We try to teach spiritual things to a dead mind.